First Contact and Prejudice. The massive view screen aboard the United Earth Defense Station, Sentinel, flickered to life, displaying what everyone had both feared and hoped for throughout human history. We were not alone. The alien fleet hung at the edge of our solar system like distant stars, their ships unlike anything human minds had conceived. They were beautiful in their alienness, organic curves mixing with crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics itself. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at attention, her dark eyes fixed on the screen while her hand unconsciously traced the worn edge of her command chair. The experimental ship under her command, the UES Defiance, represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, a vessel capable of manipulating quantum fields in ways that even their designers didn't fully understand. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Lieutenant Sarah Chen announced from her communication station, her voice steady despite the historic nature of the moment. The translation matrix is processing their language now. The message that came through was not what anyone had expected. Primitive species, the alien transmission began, its tone dripping with what could only be described as contempt. Your solar system lies within the jurisdiction of the Galactic Concordat. You will submit to evaluation for potential protectorate status. Admiral James Chen, Elena's commanding officer and Sarah's father, stepped forward. His weathered face showed no emotion, but Elena could see the tension in his shoulders. "Open a channel," he ordered. Before he could speak, the aliens continued. "We have analyzed your technological level. While you have achieved rudimentary spaceflight and energy manipulation, you lack the sophistication required for full membership in the Concordat. Your species will be contained and guided until such time as you prove yourselves worthy." Elena felt her jaw clench. The Defiance wasn't just any ship. It represented decades of human innovation, combining quantum mechanics with artificial intelligence in ways that pushed the boundaries of known physics. They might not understand everything about how it worked, but that was precisely what made it special. Human ingenuity pushing beyond the supposed limits of possibility. "Sir," Elena spoke up, addressing Admiral Chen. "Permission to demonstrate our capabilities." The Admiral's eyes met hers, understanding passing between them. "Granted, Captain. Show them what humanity can do." Elena returned to the Defiance, her crew already at battle stations. The ship hummed with potential energy, its quantum core pulsing with power that defied conventional physics. Navigation, plot a course through their fleet. Engineering, prepare for quantum shift demonstration. The alien fleet had arranged itself in a perfect geometric pattern, probably meant to impress or intimidate. Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Let's show them how humans dance," she muttered. The Defiance moved. Not with the crude thrust of conventional engines, but with the elegant precision of quantum field manipulation. The ship didn't so much fly through space as shift through probabilistic states, appearing simultaneously in multiple locations before resolving into a single position. To the alien observers, it must have looked like magic. "They're scanning us," Lieutenant Chen reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "Their energy readings are going crazy." Elena guided her ship through maneuvers that should have been impossible, the quantum drive allowing the Defiance to move in ways that ignored traditional physics. They weren't just showing off. They were demonstrating that humanity had developed technology that worked on principles the aliens hadn't even considered. The alien transmission cut through their satisfaction. "Impossible. Your energy signatures, they defy our understanding. Explain yourselves." Elena opened a channel. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the UES Defiance. What you're witnessing is human innovation. We don't just follow established paths. We forge new ones. Your assessment of our capabilities was premature." There was a long pause before the alien response came. The contempt in their voice had been replaced by something else. Uncertainty, perhaps even fear. "Your species, you've developed quantum field manipulation without using the standard progression of technologies. This should not be possible." "Humanity has a habit of doing the impossible," Elena replied. "We don't follow paths. We create them. Now shall we discuss this evaluation of yours as equals? The alien fleet's perfect formation had broken slightly, shifting position as if uncertain. Elena could almost imagine their confusion. Their neat categories of technological progression had just been upended by a species they dismissed as primitive. Admiral Chen's voice came through her comm. "Well done, Captain. I believe you've got their attention." The alien response was immediate. "The Concordat requests a formal meeting with your leaders. Your unique approach to technological development requires further investigation." Elena smiled. It wasn't first contact as anyone had imagined it, but it was purely human, defying expectations, breaking supposed rules, and earning respect through innovation rather than tradition. The Defiance hung in space between Earth and the alien fleet, a bridge between two civilizations that would never be the same after this day. As she prepared for the upcoming negotiations, Elena couldn't help but think that this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven they couldn't be dismissed or contained. Now they would show the galaxy what they could really do when given the chance to shine. The quantum core pulsed beneath her feet, a reminder that human ingenuity had already taken them further than anyone, human or alien, had thought possible. Whatever came next, humanity would face it as they always had, with creativity, determination, and the unshakable belief that limitations were made to be broken. The proving ground, the grand chamber of the Concordat, sprawled across an artificial planetoid, its crystalline dome reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood before the Council of Seven, her dress uniform pristine, while the Defiance waited in orbit above. The past week of negotiations had led to this moment, humanity's trial by combat. "You claim to be ready for full membership in the Concordat," spoke High Counselor Vix, their bioluminescent tentacles shifting through shades of deep purple. "Yet your species has barely touched the stars. The trial we propose will prove whether you deserve a seat among us." Elena's voice carried clearly through the chamber. "We accept your challenge, Counselor. Name the terms." The terms, as it turned out, were both simple and impossible. The Concordat had established a testing ground in a nearby star system, a maze of spatial anomalies, gravitational distortions, and artificial obstacles that no junior race had ever successfully navigated. Ships that entered either emerged broken or didn't emerge at all. "The labyrinth of storms," Vix announced. "Navigate its center, retrieve the quantum beacon we've placed there, and return. Do this, and humanity will have earned its place." Back aboard the Defiance, Elena studied the preliminary scans with her crew. The labyrinth was a masterwork of advanced physics, a space where normal rules of navigation meant nothing. Traditional shields would be useless against the quantum storms that raged through its corridors. They designed this to be impossible, Lieutenant Chen observed, her fingers dancing across the sensor displays. The gravitational shears alone would tear apart any hull using conventional materials. Elena smiled. "Good thing we don't use conventional anything, isn't it?" The Defiance's quantum core technology had been developed through a peculiarly human approach. Instead of following established scientific principles, they had essentially asked, "What if we did it differently?" The result was a ship that could adapt to quantum state changes in real time, something the Concordat's rigid technological progression had never considered. As they approached the labyrinth's entrance, Elena felt the familiar hum of the quantum core adjusting to the surrounding space. "All stations, report. Engineering ready, Captain. Core is stable and responsive. Navigation systems calibrated for quantum flux. Defensive systems online. Shield harmonics set to adaptive mode." The entrance to the labyrinth loomed before them, a writhing mass of spatial distortions that seemed to bend light itself. Elena took a deep breath. "Take us in, helm. Quarter power." The Defiance slipped into the chaos like a knife through water. Immediately, the ship's sensors were overwhelmed by the intensity of the quantum storms. Traditional navigation would have been suicide, but the Defiance wasn't using traditional anything. Shifting to quantum navigation, Elena announced. "Let's show them how humans solve problems." The quantum core began to pulse in rhythm with the surrounding chaos. Instead of fighting against the spatial distortions, the Defiance began to move with them, its hull briefly existing in multiple quantum states at once. The impossible became possible as the ship literally probability shifted through spaces that should have torn it apart. "Multiple contact signatures ahead," Chen reported. "The storm is getting worse." Elena nodded. "Initiate the Schrödinger protocol." Elena nodded. "Initiate the Schrödinger protocol." This was the true secret of human innovation, the ability to look at a problem and see not just the obvious solution, but the impossible ones as well. The Schrödinger protocol was exactly that kind of thinking. Instead of trying to predict where spatial distortions would occur, the ship existed in all possible states until observation collapsed it into the safest position. The Concordat observers watching from their safe distance were treated to an impossible sight, a ship dancing through chaos as if it were choreographed, shifting between states of matter and energy in ways their science said couldn't work. Hours passed as they penetrated deeper into the labyrinth. Each challenge was met with another impossible solution, another example of human ingenuity refusing to accept limitations. When they finally reached the center, the quantum beacon pulsing with ancient energy, Elena couldn't help but laugh. "Do you know what they got wrong?" she asked her crew as they secured the beacon. "They assumed there was only one right way through this maze. But humanity's strength isn't in following paths, it's in creating new ones." The return journey was almost anticlimactic. The Defiance emerged from the labyrinth unscathed, its quantum core humming contentedly, as if it had just taken a pleasant stroll rather than defied the laws of physics. In the Grand Chamber, Elena presented the beacon to a stunned council of 7. "The trial is complete," she stated simply. High Counselor Vix's tentacles had shifted to a shade of white that Elena's cultural database identified as extreme shock. "How?" they demanded. The pathways through the labyrinth were designed to be navigable only by following specific protocols, developed over thousands of years of scientific progression. "That was your first mistake," Elena replied. "You assumed there was only one way to solve the problem. Humanity doesn't work like that. We see impossibilities as challenges, not limitations." The council chambers erupted in discussion, but Elena's attention was drawn to a sudden alert from her ship. Lieutenant Chen's voice came through her communicator, tense with urgency. "Captain, you need to see this. Long-range sensors are picking up something big, and it's heading straight for Concordat space." Elena looked up at the council, seeing the same alert playing across their information displays. Whatever was coming, it would test more than just humanity's ingenuity. It would test their place in the galaxy itself. But first, they had earned their seat at the table, and with it, the right to help defend it. The Defiance hung in orbit above, its quantum core pulsing with potential, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Humanity had proven they belonged among the stars. Now they would show the galaxy why. Alliance of necessity. The holographic display in the Concordat's emergency chamber painted the room in an eerie red glow. The threat that the Defiance's sensors had detected was now visible to all. A vast armada of ships unlike anything in known space, moving with perfect synchronization through the void. They weren't just ships. They were a singular entity, a hive mind that stretched across the stars. "The Nexus," High Counselor Vix announced, their tentacles now a deep gray of foreboding. "We thought they were just legends, stories to frighten young ones about the dangers of uncontrolled technological advancement. A civilization that achieved perfect unity by sacrificing their individuality to a central consciousness." Elena studied the tactical display, her mind already racing through possibilities. The Nexus ships operated with perfect coordination because they were all extensions of the same mind. Traditional military tactics would be useless against an enemy that could instantly adapt and respond as a single organism. "Their technology level?" she asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Beyond anything we've encountered," another council member replied. They've had millennia to advance while sharing a single consciousness. Every technological breakthrough, every innovation, instantly shared and implemented across their entire civilization. The implications were clear. The Concordat's methodical, step-by-step approach to technological advancement would be too slow. Traditional weapons would be useless against an enemy that could instantly analyze and adapt to any attack pattern. They needed something unpredictable, something that defied conventional logic. They needed humanity. The Defiance's quantum technology, Elena began. It operates on principles that even we don't fully understand. Each activation of the core creates unique quantum states that can't be predicted or replicated. Against an enemy that relies on perfect information sharing, it could be our advantage. Vix finished, their color shifting to a thoughtful blue. But one ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against an armada. Then give us more ships, Elena proposed. Let us adapt our quantum technology to your vessels. Combine your advanced manufacturing capabilities with our innovative approach. Create something new, something the Nexus couldn't possibly predict because it's never existed before. The council chamber erupted in debate. The idea of allowing an untested species to modify their carefully designed ships went against millennia of tradition. But as the tactical display showed the Nexus fleet drawing ever closer, tradition began to feel like a luxury they couldn't afford. Within days, the shipyards orbiting the Concordat capital were alive with unprecedented activity. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, breaking down the barriers between their technologies. The Defiance's quantum core design was adapted and enhanced, integrated with Concordat power systems in ways that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Elena walked through one of the massive construction bays, watching as sleek Concordat cruisers were fitted with human quantum technology. Each ship was unique. The quantum cores couldn't be mass-produced identically, another advantage against the Nexus's perfect uniformity. The simulations are incredible, Lieutenant Chen reported, hurrying to keep up with her captain's stride. The hybrid ships are performing beyond all projected parameters. The quantum cores are actually learning from each other, creating interference patterns that make their behavior even more unpredictable. But it wasn't just the technology that was evolving. The forced collaboration was breaking down centuries of prejudice and assumption on both sides. Humans learned to appreciate the Concordat's methodical approach to science, while the aliens began to understand the value of humanity's creative chaos. The first test of the new hybrid fleet came sooner than anyone had hoped. A Nexus scouting force jumped into the system, probably intending to analyze Concordat defenses. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented: ships that moved in ways that defied prediction, weapons that operated on principles that couldn't be analyzed and countered. Elena watched from the Defiance's bridge as the battle unfolded. The hybrid ships didn't just fight. They danced, each one moving in unique patterns generated by their quantum cores. The Nexus ships, for the first time in their existence, faced an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. The battle was over in minutes. The Nexus scouts were destroyed or driven off, their perfect coordination shattered by the impossible chaos of the hybrid fleet's quantum-enhanced maneuvers. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The main Nexus fleet was still coming, and now they would be prepared for resistance. The real test lay ahead. Back in the council chamber, Elena stood before the Seven once again. But this time, she wasn't there to prove humanity's worth. She was there as an equal, a partner in the fight to come. The Nexus represents perfect unity, perfect order, she addressed the council. They see it as strength, but it's their weakness. They can't understand or adapt to true chaos, true creativity. That's what humanity brings to this fight. Not just our technology, but our unpredictability. High Counselor Vix's tentacles shifted through colors of agreement. Perhaps this is why the universe guided our species together at this moment. Your chaos and our order combined to face a threat to all free will in the galaxy. As Elena returned to the Defiance, she felt the quantum core pulsing beneath her feet, its rhythm slightly different every time, impossible to predict or replicate. Like humanity itself, chaotic, creative, and absolutely essential to the battle ahead. The hybrid fleet grew larger every day, each ship a unique combination of human innovation and Concordat engineering. They were no longer just preparing for war. They were evolving into something new, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. And somewhere out there, the Nexus fleet approached, about to learn that perfect order was no match for creative chaos. The ultimate test. Space itself seemed to shudder as the main Nexus fleet emerged from hyperspace. Their ships filled the void like a metallic storm cloud, each vessel identical to the last, all moving with the same terrifying precision. The hybrid fleet of human-modified Concordat ships looked tiny in comparison, scattered across the defensive line like stars against the infinite dark. From the Defiance's bridge, Alina watched the enemy advance. The quantum core hummed beneath her feet, its rhythm unique and unpredictable, just like every other ship in their fleet. That unpredictability was their greatest weapon against an enemy that relied on perfect coordination and predictability. All ships, battle formation Delta, she commanded. There was no traditional formation. Delta was a quantum randomized pattern, different every time it was implemented. Remember your training. Don't think like machines. Think like humans. The Nexus fleet's first attack came as a perfect wave of energy weapons, thousands of ships firing in exact synchronization. In previous encounters, such coordination had overwhelmed any defense. But the hybrid fleet didn't move as one. They moved as individuals, each ship's quantum core creating unique probability fields that made their movements impossible to predict. "They're trying to establish a pattern," Lieutenant Chen reported from her station. "Their attacks are becoming more complex, attempting to account for our randomization." Elena smiled. "Then let's give them something really unpredictable. Initiate Protocol Chaos." Protocol Chaos was perhaps the most human military strategy ever devised. It was, essentially, controlled randomness. Each ship's quantum core began generating interference patterns with the others, creating cascading waves of probability that made the entire fleet's behavior mathematically impossible to predict. The Nexus ship's perfect formation began to break apart as their unified consciousness struggled to comprehend and counter moves that defied their understanding of physics. They tried to adapt, but adaptation required pattern recognition, and there were no patterns to recognize. "Energy spike detected," Chen announced. "They're attempting some kind of unified quantum pulse." The space between the fleets lit up with energy as the Nexus deployed their ultimate weapon, a quantum resonance wave designed to force all matter in its path into a single predictable state. Against any normal opponent, it would have been devastating. But the hybrid fleet wasn't normal. Each ship's quantum core reacted differently to the pulse, some phasing out of normal space, others reflecting the energy back in unpredictable ways. The carefully calculated attack scattered into chaos, becoming just another element of the randomness that humans had embraced as their strength. "Their coordination is breaking down," Elena observed. "They can't maintain perfect unity while trying to process so many unpredictable variables. Now's our chance. All ships, implement attack pattern Fibonacci." The hybrid fleet moved in what appeared to be total chaos, but was actually a complex series of mathematically derived maneuvers, each ship's actions influencing and being influenced by the quantum states of those around it. It wasn't just random movement, it was orchestrated chaos, the kind of strategy that could only come from minds that understood both order and randomness. The Nexus fleet's response was telling. Their ships began to move independently, forced to make individual decisions as their unified consciousness struggled to maintain control across so many complex variables. It was exactly what Elena had hoped for. "They're splitting their consciousness," she announced to the fleet. "Push harder." Every unpredictable action forces them to think as individuals. The battle transformed into something never before seen in the galaxy's history. The hybrid fleet moved like a storm of quantum possibilities, each ship existing in multiple states until observation collapsed them into positions that even their own crews couldn't have predicted. The Nexus ships, trying to adapt, began showing signs of individuality, some retreating, others attacking aggressively, their perfect coordination shattered by the impossibility of predicting their enemies' movements. Their central consciousness is destabilizing, Chen reported, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. The quantum interference is forcing their ships to operate independently. Elena leaned forward in her command chair. That's their weakness. They sacrificed individual thought for perfect unity. But unity becomes a vulnerability when you can't predict what you're unifying against. All ships execute Final Protocol. Final Protocol was deceptively simple. Each ship's quantum core began generating randomized quantum fields that overlapped and interfered with each other, creating a cascade of probability waves that made the very fabric of space-time uncertain within the battle zone. The Nexus ships, unable to maintain their unity through such chaos, began to break formation. Their fleet is fracturing, Chen announced. Individual ships are jumping to hyperspace. They're retreating. The retreat wasn't orderly. Some Nexus ships fled immediately, while others seemed frozen in space, their crews presumably struggling with their newly forced individuality. Still others fought on, but without coordination, they were quickly overwhelmed by the hybrid fleet's quantum-enhanced weapons. As the last Nexus ships disappeared into hyperspace, a cheer went up across the fleet's communication channels. They had done the impossible, defeated an enemy that had seemed unbeatable by embracing the very chaos that the Nexus had sought to eliminate. Elena stood on her bridge, watching the quantum interference patterns fade from the tactical display. Send word to the Concordat. The Nexus fleet has been driven back. But more importantly, we've proved something today that goes beyond military victory. What's that, Captain? Chen asked. That the greatest strength isn't in perfect unity or absolute order. It's in diversity, in unpredictability, in the beautiful chaos of individual minds working together while remaining unique. That's what humanity brought to this fight. Not just our technology, but our understanding that true strength comes from embracing chaos rather than trying to control it. The hybrid fleet regrouped, each ship's quantum core pulsing with its own unique rhythm, a testament to the power of combining human innovation with Concordat technology. They had changed the galaxy today, not just by defeating a powerful enemy, but by proving that the best way forward wasn't through perfect uniformity, but through the creative chaos of cooperation between different species and cultures. A new era. 1 year after the Battle of the Quantum Storm, as the conflict with the Nexus had come to be known, the Concordat's capital world hosted a ceremony unprecedented in galactic history. The Grand Chamber, once a place of rigid protocol and tradition, now hummed with an energy that reflected the changes sweeping through galactic civilization. Captain Elena Rodriguez, newly promoted to admiral, stood before the Council of Seven. The Defiance, restored and enhanced after the battle, orbited above with a fleet that bore little resemblance to the strictly regimented formations of the past. Each ship now pulsed with its own quantum signature, a visible symbol of how the galaxy had embraced the human principle that strength could arise from controlled chaos. The defeat of the Nexus taught us all a vital lesson. High Counselor Vix addressed the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. For too long, we believed that progress could only follow a single, carefully controlled path. We saw diversity as a weakness to be managed, chaos as a force to be contained. Humanity showed us a different way. Elena watched as holographic displays showed the transformation taking place across Concordat space. Shipyards that once produced identical vessels now created unique ships, each incorporating both quantum technology and the individual innovations of their crews. Research facilities that had once focused on incremental improvements now explored radical new possibilities, combining the methodical approach of the Concordat with human creativity. But perhaps most significantly, Vix continued, their tentacles shifting through colors of optimism and hope. We've received communications from several former Nexus ships. When their unified consciousness fractured under the quantum assault, many of their crew regained their individuality. They're learning to think independently again, to embrace the diversity they once feared. This was perhaps the most profound victory of all. The Nexus hadn't been destroyed. It had been transformed. The quantum chaos had shattered their perfect unity, forcing them to rediscover the strength of individual thought. Some of these ships had even joined the Concordat, their crews bringing unique perspectives from their experience of both perfect unity and rediscovered individuality. Elena stepped forward to address the chamber. A year ago, humanity stood before you to prove our worth. We did so not by demonstrating superiority, but by showing the value of being different. Our quantum technology worked precisely because it couldn't be predicted or controlled. Our tactics succeeded because they embraced chaos rather than trying to eliminate it. The chamber's holographic displays shifted to show the new Quantum Academy, where human scientists worked alongside Concordat researchers and even former Nexus engineers. They weren't just sharing technology. They were creating new ways of thinking about the universe itself. The hybrid fleet we created wasn't just a military tool, Elena continued. It was a proof of concept. It showed that different approaches, different technologies, and different species could work together while maintaining their unique characteristics. We proved that diversity isn't a weakness to be overcome. It's a strength to be embraced. The changes went beyond military and technological advancement. Cultural exchange had flourished in the wake of the victory. Humans had learned the value of the Concordat's long-term perspective, while the Concordat species had begun to appreciate the human talent for improvisation and creative thinking. Today, we formalize what we have already proven in practice, Vix announced. The creation of the Galactic Coalition, a new form of interstellar cooperation. Not a unity imposed from above, but a harmony arising from the interaction of distinct voices. Each species, each world, each individual contributing their unique perspective to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The Defiance's quantum core pulsed with a unique rhythm that resonated with the cores of the ships around it, creating a harmony that couldn't have been predicted or planned. It was a perfect metaphor for the new order. Individual elements working together while maintaining their distinct identities. As Elena looked out over the assembled representatives, she saw the future taking shape. Research teams were already exploring applications of quantum technology beyond space travel and warfare. The principles they had discovered were being applied to everything from medicine to environmental restoration. The universe is vast and full of mysteries, she concluded her address. We can face those mysteries better together, not by becoming the same, but by remaining different. Every problem has multiple solutions. Every challenge can be approached from different angles. That's the gift humanity brought to the stars. Not just our technology, but our understanding that the greatest achievements come when we embrace the chaos of possibility. The chamber erupted in a celebration that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Different species expressing joy in their own unique ways, creating a cacophony that somehow formed its own kind of harmony. The Defiance's crew watched from orbit as similar celebrations broke out across the galaxy. They had not just won a war. They had changed the way an entire civilization thought about progress, about cooperation, about the future itself. The age of rigid conformity was over. A new era had begun, one where the chaos of creativity and the strength of diversity would guide them all to heights they had never imagined possible. As Elena returned to her ship, she felt the quantum core's pulse matching her own heartbeat, each rhythm unique, but part of a greater whole. The stars stretched out before them, full of mysteries waiting to be explored by minds that had learned to see chaos not as a force to be feared, but as the source of endless possibility.